I played through the Ashes of Ariandel DLC for Dark Souls 3, and this is how I did it. I played through the DLC after defeating the Lord of Sindar in my first playthrough of the main game and before starting New Game Plus. Ashes of Ariandel is the first of 2 DLCs for Dark Souls 3. To start the DLC, you have to interact with Slave Knight Gale at the Cleansing Chapel bonfire in the Cathedral of the Deep. He asks you to show Ariandel fire as rot has spread like a plague. He asks you to touch a scrap of a painting, which transports you to the painted world of Ariandel, a cold and snow-coated landscape filled with deadly enemies. Once you enter the painted world, you'll be in a cave. In the cave is a Corvian, who tells you more about where you are. Exiting the cave, I came across my first bonfire and started to make my way through the snowfield. I triggered an avalanche and continued through the forest only to encounter a giant wolf. Twice. Crossing a rope bridge towards a cathedral, I met Sir Vinhelm, who tells me to speak to Frida for guidance if I'm lost. Inside the cathedral, I speak with Frida, who tells me to leave the painting and return to the outside world. In this room was a ladder to an attic. In the attic was lots of parchment, frames, and an unfinished painting. Back outside, I broke the rope bridge and climbed the remains as a ladder down into the depths of the painting, descending roots until I accessed the frozen lake and was greeted by my old friends, the giant crabs. Moving towards a large structure, the champion's grave tender emerged and attacked with some wolves. At half health, he summoned the champion's great wolf. Once both were defeated, I headed back to the rope bridge bonfire and made my way to the Corvian settlement and was introduced to a Corvian knight. You fight a few of these throughout the DLC, and they are no joke. Further into the settlement, I spoke with a friendly Corvian settler. He tells me that Frida is lying and that she has fooled the father. He tasked me with showing the lady the flame. I made my way through the Corvian settlement and was confronted by an angry Sir Vinhelm at the library. Defeating him drops the contraption key, which conveniently can be used in a slot at the back of the library. Using the contraption key opens a staircase and reveals the painter, who is supposed to be working in the attic above Frida. This explains all of the materials in the attic above Frida earlier. After freeing the painter, I made my way through the snowy mountain pass and headed inside the cave to enter the basement of the chapel. Inside the rotting basement were fly creatures. I'd encountered some of these throughout the DLC already, feeding on the spreading rot in various locations in the world. If you take anything away from this video, it's to remember to bring a torch into this area because flies can leave maggots, which can cause massive bleed damage over time. Interacting with a lever in the basement triggered a cutscene, opening a staircase by Frida. Before returning to her, I went through an illusory wall where I dropped down some roots only to be invaded by Pyromancer Dunnel. Defeating him got me a spell. Warping back to Ariandel Chapel, it was time to face the final boss of the DLC and for the truth to be revealed. I found Father Ariandel, who is a large, deformed Corvian who had been trapped below the chapel. He is bound and tied to a chair with his head sunk into a large bowl. It turns out that the reason Frida was so firm with inviting me to leave was because she was guarding Father Ariandel and the flame of the painting. Father Ariandel is the keeper of the painted world of Ariandel, and his task was to unleash the flame when the painting began to rot. This was a custom intended for making way for the next painted world. However, Frida opposed this custom because she preferred a slow death in the comforting rot and managed to convince him to bury the flame of the painting and to quench it with his own blood. He constantly flails himself, bleeding into the flame to prevent the fire from burning his world. This explains what the friendly Corvian settler was talking about when he said that Frida is lying and has fooled the father. The Corvian knights, who were infatuated with Frida, swore to protect the painting from fire, killing anyone who opposed her. The painter was imprisoned and guarded by Sir Vinhelm to prevent her from restoring the painting. And Slave Knight Gale, the NPC who transported us to this world, escaped the painting, taking with him a rotting scrap of it, to search for another enkindled that will fulfill the prophecy of the painting. Me. Confronting Father Ariandel forces Frida to wield her scythe to defeat us in an attempt to prevent the painted world from being burned away, and the boss fight begins. Phase 1 is Sister Frida on her own. When Frida is defeated, Father Ariandel becomes enraged and sparks the flame in a desperate attempt to revive her. Phase 2 is Father Ariandel and Frida together. When Frida is defeated a second time, she rises again due to her inner dark flame. Phase 3 is Black Flame Frida. While Phase 1 and 2 were manageable, Phase 3 is where it all went wrong.
Return from whence thou camest. Lead us, my Ashen One. Lead us, my Ashen One. Lead us, my Ashen One. Lead us, my Ashen One.
And then I got tilted.
Return from whence thou camest. 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 Leave us me, Ashen One. Leave us me. Return. Leave us me, Ashen One. Return from whence thou.
And more tilted.
Return from whence thou. Leave us me. Leave us me, Ashen One. Return from whence. Return. Leave us me, Ashen One.
After a break and some googling, I learned that I could bring Slave Knight Gale into the arena as a summon who helps out during the second phase, and, after a couple more attempts, I finally defeated Black Flame Frida. When both Father Ariandel and Sister Frida die, the prophecy is fulfilled and the flame burns strong. The Bonfire to the Ring City DLC appears in Sister Frida's arena, but before moving on, I spoke with the painter again in the attic, and then the Corvian Settler, who both acknowledged that the painted world was burning away and rewarded me with a Titanite slab. And that was my playthrough of Dark Souls 3's Ashes of Ariandel DLC. While there are no achievements in this DLC, I still wanted to play through it and document my journey as I wanted to get the most out of everything Dark Souls 3 had to offer during my completionist run. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider leaving a like for the algorithm and subscribing for more content like this. Thank you for watching, and I'll speak to you soon.